We are here at Food Lion in someplace USA. Frequency is the reason that we're here. Frequency, frequency. He's innocent. The real frequency we're here for is this one. The frequency that means how often or how many times something occurs. I need to collect some data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask customers their age. And then I'm going to record their responses on a frequency table. Now, I'm going to practice social distancing, not only for COVID, but also because I've been told that you shouldn't ask a lady her age. So I want to stay out of arm's reach. I'm not a hockey player. I need all my teeth. Now, what am I going to do with all that data? Well, I'm going to throw that data into this frequency chart, or this frequency table. And if you notice, I have 4 different columns here. One of the columns I'm not really concerned with today, but that's going to be this column on the end called CF. That CF stands for cumulative frequency. I'm not concerned with that one today. That's just a running total of the amount of times that something occurred. So the number of frequencies, a running total as we go. What I'm most concerned with are the other 3 categories. Age. Here I have categories of ages. And 0 to 15 would mean that I have a child that is either anywhere from unborn to 15 years old. Then I have someone that's 16 to 31 years old, and so on. These categories of ages, or groups of ages, we can term bins. So each of these is a bin. This is a tally. This is where I'm going to put a tally mark each time that I have an age that occurs. And then over here, I'm just going to use a number to represent the total amount of tallies that I have accumulated once I collect all my data. Now, I did include this bin here of ages 80 to 95, simply because I may have a former teacher of mine, or say a school board member, come through today, so I'm gonna have to record their age somewhere down here. So I did include this one to make sure I covered that. I probably need to work on my resume now that I've said that.
13. 48. 46. 30. 62. 39.
55.
66. How old are you?
7.
19.
38.
23.
25.
I'm 49.
Let's say I'm 35.
65. There were 5 people who did not want to be recorded, so I'm going to enter their ages now. I've recorded all of the data I collected and ages using tally marks on this frequency table. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to represent the amount for each group using a number based on how many tally marks there are. So how many times did someone have an age between 0 to 15? 2 times because of the 2 tally marks. 5 times I had someone that was between the ages of 16 and 31. 6 times I had someone between the ages of 32 and 47. 48 to 63, there were 5. And 64 to 79, 3. Now I know the frequency and represented it as a number. So before I mentioned about the cumulative frequency, well, I'm not really going to focus on that in this particular lesson, but I'll go ahead and show you what it is. It's that running total of how many times something occurred as we go. So our cumulative frequency here for this first age group is 2. How many times did I have for the next group? 5. So I'm going to take my 2 and add it to my 5, which will give me a total of 7. And then 7 plus the next 6 frequencies is 13. And then 13 plus the next 5 is 18. And 18 plus the next 3 is 21. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, however many tally marks you have here, you should have that same amount down here at the bottom of the cumulative frequency column. Now it's time to use that data to construct a histogram. I'm going to draw a vertical axis and then a horizontal axis. Next, I'm going to place some hash marks along both the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. I'm also going to place each of the hash marks an equal distance from one another along both the axes. The horizontal axis, or also known as the x-axis, is going to be where I place those number groups, which I called bins, from our previous chart. My first bin is ages 0 to 15. Our next bin is ages 16 to 31. The third bin is ages 32 to 47. The fourth bin is ages 48 to 63. And the last and final bin is ages 64 to 79. The vertical axis, also called the y-axis, is going to be labeled to represent the frequency. Now let's put the bars in our graph. 2 times I had a person between the ages of 0 and 15. So I am going to put a bar up to 2 for this bin. Ages for my next bin occurred 5 times. So I'm going to draw a bar over that bin up to the number 5. My next bin, 32 to 47, had 6 people. And there were 5 people between the ages of 48 and 63. And my last bin had 3 people that fell between the ages of 64 and 79. This is a histogram. One of the main characteristics of a histogram is the fact that there are no spaces or gaps between each of the bars. If you notice in this histogram, all of the bars are directly adjacent to one another and are connected. The vertical or y-axis I have representing the frequency. The numbers represent how many times something may occur. It helps us to determine the height of each bar for each bin. Each of these groups of numbers can be referred to as a bin. I have 5 bins for this histogram. If you recall from a frequency table, I actually began this activity with 6 bins. However, I had no one that fell in that age category or that age group, so I did not represent it in my histogram, only because it was a bin that was on the end or outside of the histogram. Now let's focus on each bin separately. We'll start with the bin 0 to 15, which represents anybody that was 0 years of age all the way up to 15 years of age. How many ages or numbers are included in this bin? There are 16 ages represented in this particular bin. Here's why. We begin with the number 0, which counts, and then we count each consecutive whole number all the way up to the age 15, including the number 15. So there are 16 numbers in this group. Let's take a look at the next bin, 16 to 31. How many numbers or ages are represented in this particular bin? the answer here is also 16. Here's why. You must include 16, the beginning number, and 31, the end number, in this group. If you continue to count the numbers represented in each bin, you will see that every bin has the exact same amount of numbers. In order for this to be considered a valid histogram, every bin must contain the same amount of numbers. This is called the interval. The interval used for this histogram is 16 because there are 16 numbers in each bin. For a histogram to be valid and accurate, the interval must be the same for each of the classes or bins. Also, be sure to correctly label your histogram. Here, I have the frequency labeled on the vertical axis. Here, I have labeled my horizontal axis age, and it's represented in years. And the title of my histogram is Age Survey. Some key points to remember about a histogram. It is a form of bar graph, but the bars are always touching each other, unless you have a bin that has 0 occurrences or 0 frequencies. It also displays a frequency distribution for a set of data, and it also has classes, groups, or bins that each have the same interval.